Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're always about the positive vibes here on the show. And with me right now, I've got a very special guest. If you've been a fan of wrestling for so long and grew up watching WWE during the Ruthless Aggression era, you might recognize my guest today. He is a two-time WWE World Tag Team Champion, and in fact, at one point was the youngest to win a title in WWE at such a young age. Pleased to welcome the one, the only, Rene Dupree. Welcome, Rene, to Wrestling with Heart. Bonjour.
Bonjour, ça va?
All
That
right.
means, how are you? How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Yourself?
Supercalifragilistic. Doing just peachy. And by the way, I'm still the youngest wrestler to ever hold a title in that company.
Yes,
Not that it
absolutely.
really matters. That and a dollar can get you a cup of coffee anywhere. Yeah.
Now, you're the son of legendary wrestler and promoter Emile Dupree.
Yeah.
First exposures to wrestling and memories that you have with your dad.
Uh, as far as I can remember, a wrestling ring for me was like my playground. You know, most kids have a jungle gym or a swing set. I had a wrestling ring. So that was my playground. And my father was a very strict parent. He grew up during the Depression, so he made me learn the value of a dollar. In other words, nothing in life is for free. I had to work for it. So that was my upbringing.
Discipline. I mean, that is just so important, having to
Yeah.
strive to work hard and to have a strong work ethic. I mean,
Mm,
that is just so important and so, very nice, very good that your dad taught you that at such a
yeah.
young age.
Yeah.
So, wrestling, been around it all your life.
Yeah.
Earliest memories of watching pro wrestling on television.
On tele on television, it probably been my dad's promotion. He had a Saturday afternoon television show on local television here, ATD, Atlantic Television. So that would probably be my earliest memories of watching on television. And of course, going to the matches live. Uh, my father's territory was a seasonal territory, so it started usually in the spring and wrapped up in the fall, you know, give or take, depending on how good the season was. And yeah, so I've been around wrestling my entire life. We had an RV and we would travel as a family in the RV and go 7 nights a week to a different town all over the Canadian Maritimes. So yeah, wrestling's in my blood.
Yeah, getting to
Sometimes,
yeah, yeah.
sometimes I love it. Sometimes I love it. Sometimes I hate it, but I can't get rid of it.
No,
It's in my blood. Yeah,
it's in the blood. And
yeah.
getting to, being around the locker room, getting to meet so many people over the years. I mean, to be a fly on the wall, just to get to
Well,
meet some of the
I
legends.
I wasn't allowed in the locker room as a kid because I was a place of business and kayfabe was very strong. You couldn't have children walking in and out of the locker room, right? That didn't fly. So, but outside the ring, when the wrestlers would come over to the house to get their pay, and some wrestlers would stay with us, like the Harley Races and Sky Lows and things of that, and guys like that. But uh, yeah, you learn a lot just by growing up and being around it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, as a kid, because we're talking the 90s here, it was a real hot time to be a wrestling fan. And did you
Hmm.
collect all the toys, collect all the action figures, get to shirts?
Well, actually. up here in Canada, we didn't get the action figures till like I was in my teens, and I didn't really collect action figures back then. So when we would vacation in Florida, you know, a lot of people want to go to Disney World or go to the beach. My whole thing was be able to go buy WWF action figures because they had Toys R Us. We didn't have Toys R Us up here. So, I got excited because I knew I could go and get, the WWF action figures. So I had Macho Man, Hulk Hogan, Demolition. I think I had Brutus Beefcake, uh, and maybe Jake the Snake. Yeah, those were the little ones. My, not the Mattel, the Hasbro maybe. No, not the Hasbro.
The
I forget.
LJNs, the
No, yeah, I bought those off a friend of mine, secondhand.
okay.
I had the ring and everything, but I bought it secondhand. So, and then of course to get your own action figure, and I ended up getting about 12 of them. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely a
Yeah,
highlight. Now,
yeah.
some of those guys that you had mentioned, were they some of your favorite wrestlers to watch?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Uh, well, here's a fun fact. I just recently found out that my father is the one that gave Macho Man his name, Macho Man.
Hmm.
So, yeah, in 1978, the Village People came out with a hit called Macho Man. And that same year, the Powerful family came and worked my dad's territory. Actually, Angelo, which is the father of Rennie and Lanny, partnered up with my father. They went 50-50 or whatever. And an old promoter trick is to use whatever's hot and mainstream. And at the time, Village People's Macho Man reached like 25 in the top 100. So my father said, you know what? Your name's Randy Savage. You know, you had the glasses, but you didn't really have the sequence robes yet. He said, Macho Man Randy Savage. And the rest is history.
That's so amazing.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
Macho Man, a guy that really I feel like redefined the glitz and the glamour aspect of wrestling. You had Gorgeous George before him, but the costumes that he would wear, I mean, so
Yeah.
amazing to see the glasses and the cape and the hat and
Well,
everything.
in fact, Sweet Daddy Siki, who just passed away, I believe he was the first African American wrestler to bleach his hair blonde.
Mm,
He came out with the sequence robes and stuff too. You know, so everything in wrestling is either borrowed or taken. It's
yeah,
just
it's all recycled, right?
yeah, yeah. We take a little bit from everybody.
Well, it's good to have influences, though. I mean, you yourself, I know you talked about the French tickler being influenced by Rick Martel with the dance
Yep,
move.
yep, 100%. He used to do that, and that's something like I always when I do seminars, I go, guys, girls, go back and watch stuff from the past. Don't try to copy current day. You got to be different. I did tours of Europe and everybody wants to be like Will Ospreay. No, there's already one Will Ospreay. Be you, be different. And if you can't think of anything, go back and watch tapes from the 50s. Go watch Pat O'Connor versus Buddy Rogers and watch Pat O'Connor work an arm bar. No, I don't see that anywhere today. Go in the past, 25, 30, 40 years ago, and and you can find something that hasn't been done in years, and what's old is new again.
What, in your opinion, Renee, has been your favorite decade of pro wrestling in terms of wrestlers and psychology and work?
Oh, well, if I were to go by territories, I have to say that Stampede probably had some of the greatest work ever. Um, but as far as a fan, 80s WWF, because all those guys had 10, 15, 20 years experience before they got there, and everybody was different. Vince McMahon Jr. had grabbed the cream of the crop from every territory. So he had the top stars and the best of the best, you know. So that would probably be my favorite era.
Yeah, and I think what I think was so successful was they took pro wrestling not only mainstream, but the storylines at that time, while being family friendly, were edgy and were cool in a sense because you're able
Well,
to.
I'd have to say the one angle that really got me, if you go and watch WrestleMania 7, I think it's Hogan, Macho Man versus the Ultimate Warrior, where Macho Man is being valeted by a sensational Sherry, and Warrior wins the match, and then Sherry starts to, browbeat Macho Man, and then Elizabeth's in the crowd, and she comes out and says, "Randy." I still get emotional thinking about it because it was so well done. That to me is the art of professional wrestling, how you can control your emotions. You know what I mean? Yeah, that was such a good angle. So
Yeah,
good.
it just tugs at your strings.
It really does. That's like theater personified. It's just what we do. It's That was magic. That was magic.
Now, at what point did you decide I want to become a wrestler, and how did your father? What was his response?
You got to be 200 pounds before you get in the ring. So from age 13, I was about 150 to 14. About, I'd say 16 to 18 months, I put on 50 pounds. And I got up to, well, I put on about 40 pounds. I got to 190. And he said, well, that's good enough. And then eventually I got up to about 290. But yeah, he said, if you want to be a wrestler, you have to look like an athlete. You have to look like, part of what we do is perception, right? Perception is reality. If unless you're a luchador that can do 1,000,000,000 flips, which there should only be one or two on the card, you can do that. Otherwise, it's overkill. You have to look like someone who can physically. Don't forget, what were we doing? We're in the ring and we're simulating a fight, a contest, a physical contest. So you have to be able to look like an athlete and look like you can handle yourself. So that was a big thing for my father. A lot of people came up to him and said they wanted to be a wrestler, and he said, "Okay, well, you have to look like a wrestler first. You have to look like something. If I put you on a poster, you can sell tickets."
Were you an athlete in school? Did you play any sports?
Uh, I did, but I didn't enjoy team sports. I was always a loner. Everything I did, I like to do by myself. Like I like to read. I like to play bass, but I like to play it by myself. I like to bodybuild. Um, I won the nationals, the Canadian nationals when I was 17. Uh, but that was just to get exposure to help me get to the WWE. I knew Vince McMahon was a big bodybuilding fan. Hell, he tried to start his own bodybuilding federation back in the 90s. So I was going to make my resume look very impressive for the powers that be. So yeah, I got into bodybuilding competitions to put on my resume, and faith has it, I actually won. I qualified to
Congratulations.
go to, yeah, I qualified to go to the worlds, but that wasn't my dream. My dream was to go and be a mainstream pro wrestler.
Well, when you talk about team sports, why do you feel like it's hard for you to be a part of a team sport?
I just had no passion for anything other than wrestling. You know what I mean? Like, I can't watch any sports on TV. To me, it bores the hell out of me. But pro wrestling, when done well, is the greatest form of entertainment, in my opinion, that there is. So,
Yeah, I mean, you were trained, I believe you made your debut in 98 and you were trained by your dad. Tell me about
yeah.
some of the pieces of advice you got from him, any drills, any techniques you learned from him that you still
Oh,
apply to today.
the training back then was much different. You see, now, people have these drills that they do in rolls, which is great, which is good for cardiovascular and, callousing your bodies to hitting the rope and taking bumps in the ring. But in reality, what we do is on the job training. Uh, you can't get good at what we do training in an empty facility. You can get your cardiovascular, you can learn holds and counter holds and stuff, but there's no better. This is an on the job training sport profession. It's no different than being in a band. You can play in your garage with your buddies and record. Okay, that's great, but it's not until you get in front of the people to where you really perfect your art. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you got to wrestle some in Canada, got to wrestle some for your father before heading to WWE. You were 18 years old when you signed that contract,
two
which
months, 2 months after I graduated high school.
2 months. I mean, back then, how many 18-year-olds sign a contract with the biggest wrestling promotion in the world? I mean, it was unheard of at that time.
Yeah, I think myself and Teddy Hart, but Teddy only lasted 6 months and he never made it past the developmental, unfortunately. It's too bad because he's incredibly talented. But yeah, I think I'm the youngest still, I believe. Whatever. Again, that and a dollar can get you a cup of coffee anywhere, right?
Well, you were in OVW, which was their developmental training
Yeah.
system at the time. Uh,
Mhm.
Talk to me about your time there. Anything you learned, any drills you remember from there, mentors.
Yeah. Hustler Rip Rogers was the head trainer, and it's kind of funny how life works because Rip Rogers' first territory was for my father. He came up with the Poffos in 1978. Now he had started before that, but he was just doing, random spots, outlaw groups as they called it back then, here and there. But his first real 7 night a week territory was up here in the Maritimes. And well, his work speaks for itself, especially his training, because he's widely regarded as one of the best trainers there is. I think it's something like over 100 people he got hired that trained with him, ended up signing a deal with a major promotion.
Yeah, I mean John Cena, Batista, Brock Lesnar, Shelton Benjamin, Rico Constantino,
Well,
yourself.
that's guys that WWF found and hired. I'm talking about people who walked off the street and joined the beginners class. I'm talking over 100 people who just went to OVW, paid their admission or whatever, paid their training fees, and then they end up getting a job.
Mm,
So that's something to say. And another guy that got all his training and is one of the best trainers is Ronnie Hutchison. He's the guy that trained Edge, Beth Phoenix, Gail Kim, Trish Stratus, Christian Cage. There's a plethora of people I'm forgetting, but so two guys who are regarded as the best trainers. I mean, how many world champions did I just name there that were
multiple,
trained by?
like
Yeah,
five or
they were trained
six.
by. Yeah, but Rip as well. I mean, Rip had a hand in training all the OVW guys too. So you know, there's probably 20 or more world champions that were trained by guys that got their initial training right here in the Maritimes, East Coast Canada.
Anything that Rip or Ron taught you that you still recall today, like pieces of advice or things that helped you out even outside the ring?
As far as Rip, be overly prepared. If they want you to be a Sasquatch, yes, sir, I can do it. Whatever you want, I'm there for you. And as far as Ron Hutchison, 85% of this business is backstage. You can be the greatest worker in the world, but if nobody can stand you, they'll get rid of you. It's true. Everybody's replaceable.
Now you put all the fundamentals together. You have your debut match. I'd imagine it's nerve-wracking because you're in like
14 years old.
14 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, it was Woodstock, New Brunswick. I'll never forget it. And I was the good guy. And you know how good guys, usually clap people's hands or whatever.
Hmm.
Well, nobody want to clap my hands, so it was a little awkward at first. And I'm a firm believer that a wrestling fan can tell, especially now more than ever, when a guy has it or not. And when you're green as I was, my first match, I didn't really have it. It takes about 1,000 matches, honestly. And unfortunately, this day and age, there's a lot of people that can go 20 years and not reach 1,000 matches.
I remember when I was watching wrestling during that time when you were in WWE, I could tell right away like you had something special. Like you had the look, you had the charisma, and you got heat. I mean, La Resistance, we'll start with that. I mean,
Yeah.
your team was Sylvain Grenier and later with Rob Conway. Talk to me about how that group got put together because at that point, I believe it was the Iraqi War and a deal with
Yes.
with France and America. Yeah, how did that
Yeah.
get started up?
So America was, 9/11 happened, and then uh, United States was gathering all the countries to go to war against Iraq or whatever, and France says, hey, listen, we're neutral. You know, we don't want any part of this war. We don't know all the specifics. We feel sorry for what happened to you, but it does not concern us. You know what I mean? We're staying out of it. And then the American government and of course the American people lost their mind. They changed French fries to freedom fries. They burning French flags. And it just so happened there was two French speaking wrestlers in OVW at the time. So it's perfect timing was faith, really. So we got called up and it was wow. It was crazy. Madison Square Garden, we needed police escorts to take us out of the building. That's how much heat we had.
I mean,
As a
when you
19-year-old, that's a oh, yeah,
when
yeah.
you're going to airports and restaurants, I'd imagine it's hard because you're constantly getting booed by so many people that recognize you from TV. It's just
Uh, no, I mean, by then the cat was out of the bag as far as its entertainment or whatever, but I couldn't believe. I mean, we go to a random Wendy's, you know, in the middle of Indiana somewhere, and people know who you are. You know, it's unbelievable how strong WWE television is worldwide. You know,
yeah.
I mean, look, it's been 18 years and I still get bookings consistently just because of my exposure. And of course, Cafe De Rene on YouTube. Please subscribe if you're not yet subscribed. I get plugged.
Yes, yes, I'm an avid viewer of your podcast. I enjoy
Thank you.
watching the content. Absolutely. So you make your debut, you attack Scott Steiner. I believe you were in a program with him and Test. What was it like working with
Yes.
those guys?
Steiner was he was a cool dude, man, laid back, uh, a family man. He was like one of the first guys I see have his own bus. Because
Mm.
back then it was unheard of, but he had his own bus when he had his first child, which I believe his kid's wrestling now, right?
Yep, he signed
Scott,
recently.
yeah, Scotty Steiner's son wrestles now too, and I remember you was a newborn. Wow, it makes me feel old. But but yeah, Test is a fellow Canadian, and he's a fellow Canadian. No, we became closer post WWE. As a matter of fact, post WWE, we did tours of France, and we sold out every sports palace there was. Me and him every night, and so we grew closer post WWE than when we were in WWE together.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
that passing, along with your good friend Lance Cade, definitely was hard to
yeah,
swallow because
yeah,
they died so young. I mean, it's
yeah.
devastating.
Andrew, I think was 32 or 33, and Lance was 29. Yeah, that was really hard. I remember I was living in Japan, and I flew to France to do a gig, and when I landed back from uh, Paris to Tokyo Narita, my phone blew up and it was my wife. She was crying. She's like, Lance is dead. Because I actually met my wife with Lance. We went out to this nightclub and, you know, I wasn't planning on, you know, meeting my future wife that night. I just wanted to get drunk. And and I told Lance, yeah, I'm going to marry that girl. I remember him telling you should. And yeah, I miss Lance. Lance was a really, really, really good person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you
All
win
right,
your
let's
now
talk about more positive things. Come on.
yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Now you win your first major championship in WWE at 19 years old as part of La Resistance from Kane and RVD at Bad Blood. Tell me the feeling, Renee, about winning that title at such a young age.
There was a lot of pressure because they cut our time from 8 minutes to 4 minutes right when we got in the ring. So, you know, when you have something laid out and you have to cut it on the fly on live pay-per-view, that's a lot of pressure. So, and the fact that I was the youngest in history, I didn't even realize until I left. I, you know, but you know, I was never like a mark, so to speak, for like titles and stuff. You know, I understood this was a business, and I understood that they put a title on you to help get you more popular, more recognized with the fan base, right? And it was the right thing to do business wise because, again, what was going on in mainstream media.
Now, when did Rob Conway come into the picture? Because you were with Sylvan for about maybe 3 months before they brought him on board.
Well, me and Sly did not get along at all. In the office, nearly did not get along at all. And uh, don't forget, Sylvan's first three matches were WWE live event matches. He never wrestled a match before or hardly after WWE. Like that was his gig. And so there was a lot of pressure on the team and a lot of pressure on me to deliver because here we are given this main event type opportunity. Because I mean, we did main event Raw, we did main event the television show and the live events. I remember we were closing the show in front of 40,000 people in Australia with the Dudley Boys. You know what I mean? So as a 19-year-old, that's a lot of pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So they brought in Rob as a third man, which the way they did it was very, very well done, as a French sympathizer, American French sympathizer, whatever. Uh, because he had more experience and they wanted me as a singles to go work with Cena. I think the whole plan was to have me and Cena become two of the pillars of WWE for the future. You know, they went with Cena because, well, he's American. He was 7 or 8 years older than I, and much more mature. And let's face it, the guy looks like a movie. Well, he is a movie star,
He
and he's
is.
very articulate. He's very articulate, very intelligent, very well spoken. And he's a hell of a representative for any company. So,
Yes. Now, Rob Conway, did you enjoy working with him? Because I know you guys tagged together as well.
oh, I loved him. I still do. He's a great guy. Matter of fact, post WWE, he got his pro card for IFBB pro card for bodybuilding
Hmm.
after he left WWE, So that shows what type of workhorse he is.
Yes.
But yeah, he's a great, great human being. You'll never meet a better, finer human in your life than Ron Coleman.
Now, you guys had a lot of success as a team. You just mentioned earlier you got switched to SmackDown with the big singles push. How did you feel at the time? Did you feel ready to be on your own? Did you miss being in a tag team? Tell me about that whole feeling of splitting off.
I
Start.
was excited. I was really excited because that's what I wanted. I'm a climber. I'm a goal. I set goals for myself and I climb to achieve those. You know what I mean? So, the first goal was to get to WWE. I did it. Okay, now it's to get to television. Okay, now it's the main event Raw. Okay, I did it. Now it's to be a single star in SmackDown. Okay, and it's the main event SmackDown. I can't tell you how many times I main evented SmackDown, the television show, and the live events with sold out arenas. Me and John Cena.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I got to watch your rewatch your match with Cena from Judgment Day of '04. Man, that crowd was
yeah,
white hot. I mean, you were white hot as a heel, but
yeah.
Cena was white hot as a babyface, and that drew a lot of money, man. I mean, you guys did some
Well,
great work.
they did 300. Well, that building was completely sold out, and they did 300,000 buys on pay-per-view. So if you compare that to AEW that struggles to get 100,000 buys, what does that tell you? And don't forget, SmackDown was considered the B show back then,
Mm,
and there was two pay-per-views a month. There was a Raw and SmackDown pay-per-view. So that's not bad business, right?
no.
I said there was no John Cena sucks chance, but there was certainly Cena sucks chance once I left. He wasn't working with me anymore.
Oh man,
Just saying.
missing Rene Dupree. That's the secret ingredient, right?
Well, no, wrestling, in my opinion, is a heels business. You can have the baby face, yeah, but let's face it. Why did you watch The Dark Knight? Did you watch it for Batman or did you watch it for the Joker?
We watched it for the Joker, man.
It's a heels business, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Now, I have to bring up one of my favorite segments that you were involved in. The original Cafe De Rene, not to be confused with the podcast of the same name.
Right.
You had Tori Wilson on as your guest. What was it like working
Yeah.
with her?
Oh, she's a sweetheart. She's a saint, and probably one of the most attractive women that I'll ever meet in my life. She's an angel. She's an angel.
Yeah. All right. Now, after working with Cena, you got to work with Kenzo Suzuki, winning
Mm.
the WWE tag titles over on
Yep.
SmackDown, which blossomed into a real life friendship too.
Yeah. No, Suzuki and his wife Hiroko were great, and sometimes they'd be yelling at each other, and I didn't understand Japanese at the time, but I remember certain words, and it's kind of ironic. I actually married a Japanese woman. And now I know what those words meant, so it's kind of funny. I'm not going to say what those words meant, but it's kind of funny. She was basically yelling at him in the car, calling him names. But anyway, uh, yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. Uh, Hiroko was a sweetheart, and Kenzo's was just a wonderful human being. He's actually a producer in Japan now for Fuji TV, and Hiroko she's in the political game. She's a politician in Tokyo. Uh,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I feel like that team should have gone on a little longer because you guys got some pretty good heat, and I think your styles I feel like meshed well together.
Well, well, it is what it is, Like I said, like Rip Rogers taught me. Yes, sir. You do as you're told. You shut up and do as you're told. So you do it to the best of your ability, and if it's not good enough, well, you gave it your all, right?
Now, when you were on SmackDown, one guy I feel like I know you talked about him in the past, would have been a great opponent for you as a single star was Eddie Guerrero. He was on the
Yeah,
roster at that time. I mean, what an amazing human being after reading so many
yeah,
stories and
yeah.
was devastated when he passed. And any stories you want to share about working with Eddie?
Oh, Eddie was just wonderful. He was so smooth. I only had maybe a handful of matches, and they were usually in tags, never singles. But we were dying to work with each other. But I think the timing, Vince was set on John Cena. That's the guy he wanted. And, you know, JBL was the champion at the time. And that was, the main event, the headline of so if that's the case, you can't put any other match that might surpass them. You understand?
Hmm.
I can guarantee you, if me and Eddie would have worked a program together, the two Johns, meaning Layfield and Cena, would not have been able to touch us. Would have not been able to touch us in any way, shape, or form. Not in work, not in charisma and promo, not in nothing. So maybe that was one of the reasons why they kept me and Eddie apart from each other.
Yeah, I mean, you got to work quite a few guys in WWE that I think I went back and watched some of your old matches there. Worked with
Yeah.
RVD and Rey Mysterio.
Yeah.
What were they like to be around?
Oh, amazing. And Ray, well, he's a salt of the earth. You'll never meet a better human being than Rey Mysterio. He's or Oscar, whatever you want to call him. He's just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful human being. And again, another guy. It's like working with water, just so smooth. Yeah.
Another guy you also got to wrestle with in WWE was Paul London, getting to tag against him several times.
My best friend in the business by far.
Any fun stories you want to share with you and Paul London on the road?
Not that I can share on this podcast.
Okay.
Okay, let's just say we got into a lot of mischievous things together.
Yeah.
In Las Vegas, especially. I'm just gonna leave it at
Okay.
that.
All
Yeah.
right.
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, all right?
That's right. I mean, the cool thing about wrestling is that there's a camaraderie. You know, you meet so many people, hang around them, you go on the road, you have these memories, even if they're 20 or 30 years ago, and it's like when you catch up, you haven't seen these guys in a long time. It's like you remember it just like it was yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. In wrestling, you have very few friends and many acquaintances, but that's just the way it goes. I mean, that's probably any other line of work. If you're a traveling journeyman like myself, you might see a guy at a show and you see him 6 years later. I won't remember his name. Sorry, I can't remember your name. We never traveled together. Like for example, this tour I just got off, over 14 shows in 14 days. You have to depend on each other to survive sometimes. And
Yes.
that's when a bond and a brothership and a fraternity develops, right?
Yeah, I mean it's the bonds are always strong when you're with people that care
Yeah,
about you and you've known these guys for so long. It is like a family, like a close-knit group of people that want to support each other, cheer each other on. Um, Now, before you left WWE, you were part of ECW, had a short run there. They had you paired back up with
yeah,
Sylvain, with La Resistance again.
yeah.
What was the plan? Were you guys gonna win the
They
tag
were,
titles?
yeah, they were going to make a ECW tag title and give it to us, but my I had issues, substance issues, and I had an issue where it was a rock bottom for me because I overtook some medication before getting into the ring at an OVW event, and it was embarrassing. I asked for help, which the WWE provided me with help, and I'll forever be grateful for that. And it was a 4 month treatment, and unfortunately, about a week or two after I got out of the rehabilitation center, the Chris Benoit tragedy happened. And all signs pointed to, if I stay with this company, more than likely something like that could and will probably happen to me. So I asked for my release. Don't forget, I got there in 2002. From the years of 2002 to 2007, the years that I was there and beyond. I mean, let's face it, 2010 was when Lance Gate passed away. There was deaths, half a dozen or more a year, and these
Yeah,
were guys who were all under the age of 50 or 40. You know, uh,
yeah.
and the majority of them were overdose and or suicide. Right, so that's not what I signed up for. That wasn't my dream. My dream wasn't to die young. My dream was to have a very successful, lucrative um, career in professional wrestling. So that kind of scared me. Originally, the plan was just to take a year or two off. Uh, and within a day of asking for my release, I was already booked in Japan. And after my first tour, they wanted me full time. I didn't want to go full time at first. I just wanted to do about 5 tours a year and then travel worldwide independently. And I did that. And well, here we are, 18 years later, and I'm doing a Skype call with you.
I mean, it's hard when we talk about the camaraderie in the wrestling business, and you're traveling on the road
Yeah,
with these guys
yeah,
365 days a year, 300 days a year, and you're rubbing shoulders with these people, you're meeting these people, and then boom, at the blink of an eye, they're gone.
yeah,
We lost Eddie in '05,
yeah,
'07. Chris Benoit
yeah,
dies,
yeah.
and were you and Chris ever close? Did you guys ever were you guys friends?
No, we just, I mean, he was always nice to me, but I saw the dark side one night. We were in Manchester. I think Manchester could have been London. And it was the night before SmackDown taping. I'd gone down to the hotel bar to get something to drink, like a bottle of water. I didn't drink alcohol back then. Very little now either. But anyway, and Chris was at the bar by himself, holding a beer. His custom to just say hello. So I tapped him on the shoulder. Hey, Chris, what's up? And just the look of rage in his eyes as he was gripping his beer told me, okay, it's time to get the hell out of here. And the next day, come to find out that there was a big brawl in the lobby of the hotel between the wrestlers and I believe it was a rugby team or a football team, like a European football team. Yeah, there was a big brawl between the wrestlers and I think it was rugby players. The big fight, and I of course was in bed sleeping because I try to stay out of trouble if possible.
Yeah, I mean, you hear so many stories about the dark side of the industry and how hard it can be, outside of the
Well,
ring.
here's the thing: when you're running guys 300 days a year, you know, you can't fake gravity. When our bodies hit that mat, you know, it's like being rear-ended by a car at 35 miles per hour. And if you're taking 10 or 15 bumps a match and you do that 300 nights a year, think of the physical, it's going
Mhm.
to take its toll, and then don't forget you're flying all over the world. Have you ever been to Asia? Have you ever been to Japan?
Not yet.
Okay. Okay. Well, it's about a 12 or 13-hour difference. You know,
hmm
that's when sleep medication comes into play, and then
hmm
painkillers came into play because, uh, you're in an industry where you cannot show the promoters that you're in pain because, oh, well, this guy's not tough enough. We can't, because if they give you the ball, you're expected to run with it. And if you got injury prone, then you're a liability. They can't invest their money into you. Understand?
hmm
So a lot of guys will do what they have to do to survive. Unfortunately, what they have to do to survive is killing them. So you're killing yourself to live, essentially. So what's that worth? You know?
So you after you leave WWE, you go to Japan.
Yep.
Why Japan? You had TNA, Ring of Honor, the Independents. What was it about Japan that appealed to you?
um, they would fly me from Canada so I could be home with my family. And TNA paid certain guys a lot of money. Others would go weeks without getting a paycheck. A lot of people didn't know. Some people had to get a job on the side just to work for TNA, right? Ring of Honor, I'm sorry, but they never cut a profit. You know, it sounds good on the internet, but it doesn't sound good when it in your bank account. You understand? This is a business. And if you're in this business, you understand it. If you're not, you're on the outside looking in. And you're not going to learn shit by reading Meltzer's reports. I'm sorry.
So you go to Japan. You
Yes.
notice a huge difference between Japanese wrestling and American wrestling. I've had many guys on
Not
here.
n- not at first, because I worked for a company called Hustle. And Hustle was they were going more towards the entertainment aspect, like promos, and that's not what I really wanted, but it got my foot in the door. You understand? See, Japan is run much differently than the United States. It's changing now with the new administration, with the Mr. Devak administration, because they're doing business with seems like TNA have a partnership, and they're doing partnerships with other people and other organizations and stuff. But at that time, it was completely monopolized by WWE as far as North America and Western. But in Japan, majority of the promotions work together. You know the history of the NWA, National Wrestling
Yes,
Alliance.
yes, yes.
So yeah, think National Wrestling Alliance where the promotions work together. If they needed help, they would help each other out. You know what I mean? So that's why I worked for five different promotions. I started off with Hustle, which was more entertainment based, and then from there I got my foot in the door with All Japan, and then from All Japan I went to Wrestle One, and then from Wrestle One I went to Noah, and well, we'll see what the future holds, but I'm very keeping myself positive.
Compare the differences between Japan and the United States. Did you feel like it was similar in some cases, different as your career
Oh yeah,
evolved?
because at the time in WWE, every match was the same. It was a little bit of shine, like the psychology of the matches, instead of the comebacks, the bump and feed, which I think is ridiculous, personally. Why would you take a clothesline, hop right up and run into another one? To me, it's just idiotic. But that's what it was at the time. You know, uh, the style has since changed in WWE for the better. Uh, I watched very little, but I was at a signing yesterday in Winnipeg, and I was watching a little bit of NXT. There was a female. I don't know what the girls' names were, but whoever's training them over there is doing a hell of a job. A hell of a job because they're wrestling. They're using. To me, they could sell a little bit more and maybe slow down a little bit more, but uh, it's their company. They can do whatever they want. But yeah, as far as the styles in Japan, yeah, Japan was they have their own psychology, which now being over there so long, their mentality makes sense to me more so than the American style.
Now you've gotten to work against so many different people over the course of your career. Who have been your absolute favorites to compete against over the years?
Well, I can say with I don't want to sound too egotistical, but there's been five Grand Slam champions. Uh, Kensuke Sasuke, the Great Muta, Kojima, Takayama, and I think I'm missing one. No, no, that's it. There's four. And by Grand Slam champions, I mean they won the New Japan IWGP title, they won the Triple Crown All Japan title, and they won the Noah GHC title. And I was in main events in sold out arenas, which each one of those competitors, you know. So for me, that's kind of like a feather in my hat for me because the Kenny Omegas of the world and the Young Bucks of the world never did that shit.
Yeah, you've got so many accomplishments, getting to
Yeah,
wrestle all over the world. Let's talk about outside of the business. I know with your story, you've gotten to mentor a lot of young people, especially kids, that
yeah,
have gone through a lot of stuff, alcohol or drug addictions. Talk
right.
to me about some of the charity work or things that you've done to help out in your community over the years.
Well, I just started. I reconnected with an old friend, childhood friend. He's a police officer, and he asked me if I want to do these talks and just tell my story, you know. And at first, I said, "Well, I don't know what I can tell him. I don't know." He's just tell me your story. Trust me, it's gonna work. Okay, so I started doing them. I was like, "Wow, this is actually fun." Because and I always tell the kids, listen, when I was your age and they had someone come in and talk, I wouldn't listen to them. So I know there's a majority of you that aren't going to listen to me, but if one of you can listen to my message and steer yourself in the right way, and listen, I'm no saint. I fall off the wagon sometimes too, but uh, uh, I like to promote self-discipline, health and fitness. Sometimes you got to raise some hell, but some people can't because if they do, they can't stop. They can't put out the fire. In other words, uh, every man has to know his limitations, and but self-discipline to me is key in life.
It is, and you were talking about that at the beginning of the podcast. You know, your dad
Yeah,
instilled a work ethic in you. Um,
yeah,
it really comes from within. I mean, you have to want to get better, in anything, whether it's
true.
wrestling or your health or whatever career path you desire in life. It starts
Yep,
from here.
you're right. 100%. 100%. Self-discipline. Start off by making your bed every morning. Seriously, make your bed every morning. And no matter how bad of a day you have or what happens, at least you can come home to a nice, well-made bed.
It's all about appreciating the little things in life that we take for
Yeah,
granted. And
yeah.
what are the kids' reactions or people that you've mentored when they come up to you? What's like the first thing that they say in response?
Well, the majority of the kids are usually bad kids. So if I can make them cry and scare them, I know it sounds heartless, but it's actually a good thing because you're instilling fear, and that means you connected with them and you waken them up. You know what I mean? Yeah, I know it sounds heartless to say, but if you're one of those little badasses or think you're a badass and I can break you, you know, I've done my job.
Have you heard from any of the people that you've mentored that have said like, "Wow, you've inspired me to change my life for the better." Has that ever happened?
Uh, yeah, there's been a few that contacted me on social media and stuff and said I helped them. And I'll be honest with you, that's not something I ever really strive for. But now in my older age, I kind of actually appreciate that I can touch someone's life in a positive way, to not be so selfish, to be more giving, and everything comes back in life. You give, it comes back in spades. I firmly believe that. And it's not just, you know, like a monetary thing or a materialistic thing. It could be just doing a good deed will eventually come back to reward you somewhere. I'm very spiritual in that way.
What is it about giving back to the community that gives you the most joy?
I don't know if it gives me joy. I think it's just God's will. You know, that's what we're here to do is help each other out. You know, I'm a big advocate of anti-bullying because you don't know what, and sometimes, words have so much power to them. You know, you might say something in passing that you might feel is innocent, but you don't know what that person's going through. You don't know what their family situation is like. You don't know what their financial situation is like. You don't know if they're being abused at home or their financial situation is so poor that they have a hard time, eating or buying new clothes. Uh, so yeah, so I think it's God's will for every human being to uh, to give back and to help. And like I said, the universe has a way of rewarding people to do that.
Yeah, and you've definitely paid it forward to so many people, and hopefully will continue to do so. You've made quite the resurgence in recent years in the mainstream with your podcast, Cafe De Rene. I know you've been very active in the wrestling business still, but I want to talk to you about how you got started with it and you're reconnecting with old friends of yours
Yeah,
from the Ruthless Aggression era and even before and present, past and present. I mean, tell me about your
yeah.
podcast.
Well, a gentleman from England, James, he contacted me during the pandemic. Everything was shut down. There was very little to no work, so I had nothing to do. And he had his own podcast called That 90s Wrestling Podcast or something. So I did that out of boredom, and then one of the clips went viral. And he contacted me and asked me if I wanted, try doing our own. It's like, well, I got nothing better to do in my time. And we started doing it just to kill time and then started making money and I started getting exposure. And here we are 3 or 3.5 years later and it's still going. And
Yeah, I mean, this is like your way of keeping up to date with the wrestling business.
100%, 100%. I don't like going on the dirt sheets or the newsletters. I let other people do that for me.
Well,
I got too much to do.
when you go to these signings and conventions, tell me how, when you see these people that come up to you, remember you from their childhood, it has to feel good inside.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. When they have the action figures, it's funny when I see little kids who weren't even born and they're holding signs, do the French tickler. And you know for a fact that he doesn't know what that sign means, but it's probably his dad that does, right? So, you can connect with a whole new generation. Uh, it's just an amazing feeling. And just, again, I didn't set out to be a pro wrestler, to be a role model, or to be anybody's hero. I did it because I grew up in wrestling. It was a cool way to make a living, right? It was a cool lifestyle. It wasn't a 9 to 5. I'm not a 9 to 5 type of guy, And but what happens with that television exposure is that you do become a role model. You do become people's heroes, and you do end up motivating people to whatever it is, get into physical shape or become pro wrestlers themselves. So I didn't sign up for that, but it's kind of rewarding now that that is a part of the gig. And anybody getting into it realize that's pretty much a package deal that comes with the territory. As soon as you're on television and you do this in live entertainment, you're going to touch people's lives, hopefully for the positive.
It does. And you've even gotten to wrestle back in the United States too. How does it feel?
Uh, well, I have had very limited uh, matches in the United States, but hey, you never know. You never know. If there's a company out there willing to invest money in getting me a work permit, uh, I'd consider it. But at 41 years of age, uh, actually, shit, at 41 years of age, I can still hang with the young kids and blow them up. So I really don't care. I'll be doing this for as long as the wheels falls off.
When you watch these clips of some of the guys today, who are some people that you go, man, I'd love to have a match with this guy. Or this
Oh,
guy's really good.
Jacob Fatu, Gunter, uh, Rick Steiner's son was it Braun Breaker.
Braun Breaker, yes.
Yeah, those Roman Reigns. I'd like to get in there with him. I think me and Cody could do some good business. Me and Randy, we've always wanted to work with each other, never did. Uh, yeah, those are a few names.
It's so amazing. Like Randy Orton is the last guy, full-time guy from your era that's still there. Isn't that mind-blowing?
Well, let's just say Randy Orton was pretty much made to be a pro wrestler. That's the gig. Those are the cards he was dealt. But yeah, I haven't seen Randy in over 18 years. So
Yeah.
I hope
John
he's doing
Cena.
well.
Yeah. And John
Yeah,
Cena's retiring this year too, so it's
yeah.
crazy, the work you guys did together, uh, fantastic. What's your thoughts on John Cena's retirement?
Uh, let's just say he's not yet retired. Okay. There's always a comeback match to come out. You know what I mean? Roddy Piper supposedly retired in WrestleMania 3, but wasn't he a part of WrestleMania like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? So trust me, this might be his full-time retirement as far as a full-time wrestler, but you won't see the last of John Cena. He'll make appearances, trust me.
Yes.
Yep.
Well, Renee, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on to Wrestling with Heart. It means a lot to me and to my listeners and viewers that are watching this on YouTube. Where can people find more about you and your podcast and everything
This
that you're doing?
Cafe De Rene on YouTube. That's please subscribe and like all the videos. And I don't really do the social media thing. That's bad for my mental health. But if you want to follow me, Cafe De Rene on YouTube. That's it. Please subscribe.
All
Mondays
right.
and Fridays, 6 p.m. Eastern. Live.
All right. Well, Renee, thanks again, and you're more than welcome to come back.
All right, my friend. Thank you, Stanley. And you have a great day, okay?
You
God
too.
bless. God
Bye-bye.
bless.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.